lady called Rhiannon. So coming up in this hour, a Sudanese asylum seeker has been jailed for life for murdering asylum hotel worker Rhiannon White on a railway station platform. Deng Chol Mayek was sentenced at Coventry Crown Court. That's the last time I'm saying his name, by the way. I'm refusing to get his name in history. He was sentenced to a minimum term of 29 years for murdering the Brit mum of one. She left a 5-year-old child. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister's trip to China has been overshadowed by a stark warning from the US President that cozying up to Beijing could be very dangerous. Is Britain risking its closest alliance, though? And, yeah, shocking news. Nearly 50,000 prisoners have been released early under Labour's emergency scheme to ease overcrowding in jails. But with 5,000 recorded in December alone, has Labour really got a grip on the prison crisis? Yes, it's a sad night, but I do have a wonderful panel for you. Co-founder of the Together Association, Alan Miller, and Labour councillor and commentator, Sebastian Salek. Thank you very much for joining me, gentlemen. But first, let's get those news headlines.
Dawn, thank you. The top stories. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer says China has agreed to lift sanctions on British MPs and peers after talks with President Xi Jinping.
I know that the action taken in relation to our parliamentarians has been a real cause of concern, understandably so, and therefore I raised that issue whilst I was here. And the Chinese are absolutely clear in response that the restrictions no longer apply. President Xi said to me that means all parliamentarians are welcome. And I think that shows that if you engage, you can raise the difficult issues, the issues that my parliamentary colleagues would have expected me to raise, and therefore I can be clear the restrictions no longer apply.
It comes after Donald Trump has said it was very dangerous for the UK to do business with China as the Prime Minister arrived in Shanghai on the third day of his visit to the country. Sir Keir Starmer has secured a visa-free travel deal with China during his trip, a move the government says will boost trade and business links. Shadow National Security Minister Alicia Kearns told GBNews she would be disappointed if she were the Prime Minister. Meanwhile, Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey says it's a real issue doing a deal with China.
Trump is a hypocrite. He's going to China to try to do business in a few weeks' time, and the only person who's dangerous at the moment is President Trump, not sticking with NATO and his allies. There's a real issue about doing business with China. I think we really need to, but it's the Conservatives who have the real question to answer. They say we can't trade with China, they don't want to trade with Europe, and they have now admitted that it's very difficult to trade with Trump's America. So they talk about a global Britain in the Conservative Party. They're saying don't talk to anybody.
A Sudanese asylum seeker has been jailed for life for murdering asylum hotel worker Rhiannon White on a railway station platform. Deng Chol Mayek was sentenced to a minimum term of 29 years for murdering the British mother of one. Miss White died on the 23rd of October of 2024, 3 days after Mayek stabbed her 23 times with a screwdriver at a train station in Warsaw. Passing the sentence, Mr Justice Saul said the Sudanese national had acted with a chilling composure in every aspect of his behaviour when he killed the 27-year-old. Detective Chief Inspector Paul Atwell, who led the investigation into the murder of Rhiannon, spoke outside of court.
Her killer may have been sentenced to life in prison today, but no sentence or outcome will ever really be justice for Rhiannon's family and friends, who continue to live with this insurmountable, horrific loss.
The US Justice Department has published a new cache of files related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. They are releasing 3 million pages, including 2,000 videos and 180,000 images related to Epstein. Thousands of pages have already been made public in prior releases, which have included photographs with high-profile people, text messages and emails. There is no suggestion that appearing in the documents implies any wrongdoing, and many people who have featured in previous releases have denied any wrongdoing in relation to Epstein. Elsewhere, a US judge has ruled that federal prosecutors cannot seek the death penalty against Luigi Mangione over the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. US District Judge Margaret Garnett dismissed a federal murder charge against Mangione, finding it was technically flawed. The judge left in place stalking charges that carry a maximum punishment of life in prison. The 27-year-old has pleaded not guilty. Mangione also faces 9 counts in a case brought by New York state prosecutors, including second-degree murder and various weapons charges. He's pleaded not guilty in this case too. Elsewhere, millions of low-income families will continue to receive £150 off their winter energy bills after the government confirmed its warm home discount will remain for the rest of the decade. Ministers said extending the scheme for another 5 years would help the ongoing high cost of living, which has largely been fuelled by a big increase in energy costs. The average energy bill for a household in England, Wales and Scotland, remaining on a standard variable tariff, reached £1,758 a year this winter. The UK is reportedly set to follow the EU by introducing new terror-style powers to ban Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps. Government sources said that ministers will introduce a new law banning the group, which has been accused of helping massacre thousands of protesters in Iran. Yesterday, the confirmation came that the European Union added the IRGC to its list of terrorist groups alongside Al-Qaeda, Hamas and the Islamic State. A government spokesperson has said, "We utterly condemn the terrible violence being used by the Iranian regime against those exercising their right to peaceful protest." And Novak Djokovic has booked his place in the Australian Open final after a 5-set victory over second seed Jannik Sinner. The world number 4 will now face Spain's Carlos Alcaraz on Sunday in Melbourne at the Rod Laver Arena. A win for Novak Djokovic would see him claim a record-breaking 25th Grand Slam title. And those are the latest headlines. More from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Tatiana, and welcome to Dewbs & Co. Obviously with me, Dawn Neeson, tonight. Similar blonde, but different accent. OK, joining me until 7, my panel, co-founder of Together Association, Alan Miller, and Labour councillor and commentator, Sebastian Salek. Thank you so much for joining me, gentlemen. On a Friday night, and normally Michelle's show is all about Friday night. Let's have some fun, shall we? But tonight, unfortunately, it's a different story, isn't it? We are talking about the murder, the horrific murder of a young woman, Rhiannon Skye White was her name. She's 27 years old. Her life was taken by an asylum seeker. He has been jailed. I'm not going to say his name. I'm sorry, I refuse to say his name. I'll say Rhiannon's name all night because this show is all about her and why this can never, ever, ever happen again. In any case, this piece of filth who took her life was an asylum seeker. He entered the country illegal on a boat and has been jailed today for the murder of Rhiannon, who was stabbed to death at a railway station in Walsall in October 2024. Described by her family as demonic and inhumane, the killer is believed to have entered the UK by small boat and less than 3 months before taking Rhiannon's life in a frenzied attack using a screwdriver. Rhiannon was 27 years old, as I said. She was a mum of one 5-year-old little boy. She worked at the asylum seeker hotel where this scumbag was being housed at your expense, taxpayers' expense. And she cooked and she cleaned and she cared for the young men being held there. Passing sentence at Coventry Crown Court, Mr Justice School told the asylum seeker he had brought devastation to Rhiannon's family as he imposed a life sentence for murder. Outside the court, Alex White said she saw no remorse from the man who had killed her sister.
On that horrific day, our precious Rhiannon was shown no mercy. Throughout this trial, we have been given no reason as to why he chose Rhiannon. No accountability for his actions, and no remorse. She fought for her life and to save herself from this sick, twisted and cowardly human.
Now, as usual, this show is not about me or my panel. It's about you and your thoughts. Not just about Rhiannon, anything you want to talk about, to be honest with you. It is a Friday night. This is what we're here for. We're here to talk about you and what you're thinking. gbnews.com/your say is the way, as always, to get in touch, or you can scan the QR code. Please do, because I want to hear your thoughts on this one, because, well, I mean, it's not, you don't have to be a woman or a girl to understand this, because men, you have wives, you have daughters, you have mothers, you have nieces. You know, the women in your lives you love and care about. Rhiannon was one of those women. So let me know what you're thinking about this story. I'm going to ask my panel now. This isn't going to be a debate. I know Michelle's show is all about debate and feisty argument, etc., which is brilliant. It doesn't work for this subject, nor should it work for this subject, because you can't debate the senseless slaughter of a young woman whose 5-year-old child is now being cared for by her sister. Rhiannon took 3 days to die, by the way, and this little boy now wants to be a brain surgeon because he said, look, I don't want any other ladies to be hurt like my mummy was. I want to make them better. A 5-year-old who's lost his mum. Sebastian, I'm going to get very emotional about this because of course I'm upset. I feel terrible for Rhiannon's family, but I'm going to say it, I'm bloody angry. I'm really angry about what not just this government, but various governments are putting women and girls in this country through. A horrific story. What would you like to say about it?
Well, firstly, I'm glad that the family were able to get some justice today. I'm pleased that the killer, and you're right, we shouldn't be saying his name, got a sentence that he deserved, and disappointed that he wasn't able to show any remorse for his horrible actions. It is all round a horrible situation, isn't it? And no, we just hope that the family can take some closure from today's jailing and be able to get on with the rest of their lives. I know that's not going to be easy for them.
It really isn't. Alan, the mum outside the court, her mum, Donna, Rhiannon's mum, she was talking about the fact that the killer had showed no remorse. He also refused to accept that he'd done anything. He said, it wasn't me, I wasn't guilty, despite being soaked in Rhiannon's blood. He made this family give evidence and victim impact statements, and you can imagine what that must have been like, actually prolonging the agony of this family. He was an asylum seeker. He wasn't. He came over here illegally on the small boats, one of the small boats, in July, just a couple of months before he killed Rhiannon. He'd already been turned down for asylum in Germany, where he'd been living for a year. Now, this isn't all about migrants. This isn't about that. This is about being angry about the safety of women and girls. It's not shaming. But I just want to read you what Rhiannon's mum, Donna, said outside the court. She said, "My life ended with Rhiannon that day. To the person responsible, why? You will be forgotten, an evil nightmare. Rhiannon had worked at a hotel looking after migrants for 6 months." She also said the government needs to take a tougher stance on illegal migration. For the safety of women, it's not about race. It's about the fact that these men are allowed to come here. We don't know who they are. We don't know why they're here. They're undocumented. We don't know what they want, what the hell they're doing here. Why are we continually allowing this to happen? Now, Rhiannon isn't the first woman to lose her life. She's certainly not we've had countless stories of women and girls being sexually assaulted by migrants who are illegally. He's not an asylum seeker. He's an illegal migrant. He came here illegally. Alan, why are we putting the lives of girls and women in this country at risk in this way?
Well, Dawn, this is one of those terrible, terrible stories that you just look at and you think it just encapsulates everything that's so wrong and terrible. And it's difficult to take any, you look at it, you think, God, this is the depths of darkness, what's happened here. And I think this is why the country, obviously to the family and everyone in the country should be saying Rhiannon White's name. But here, first, you've got someone who's gone out of their way to help others. Many, people in Britain are paying often to be very generous and help others, and this has just gone far too far. We have a situation where things are out of control. Actually, it has been several governments, but when governments have tried to, through being elected in and through the public wanting action to be taken, often the civil service has blocked things. We've got a situation where the democratic impulse is being prevented by bureaucrats who often got luxury ideas, who are not living close to the situation. Fortunately, in this instance, the judge did say, you know, you've lied to us, you've been saying you're 18. Remember, Alison Pearson was doing interviews with a whistleblower and they were told to pretend that they're a certain age and write them through. They were told to write them through lest they be seen as being racist, particularly for certain countries. And we've got this whole dance that still goes on, that if it's from Afghanistan or parts of Africa, that and these particular men that come, many of them with very particular attitudes towards women and girls, that we have to not say things in case that it might be deemed as it being racist, or you can't talk about this problem with illegal migration in case you're presented as that. And the public is fed up of it and is sick of it. And we've seen far more proportionately, far more cases of crime and sexual attacks and rapes and murder than we should do. We've seen one is too many, but proportionally it's skyrocketed. And I just think now we've got a situation that both with the Home Office and Border Control, this needs to get grips with. It's why this government is under so much pressure. It's also the case that their response to this over the last period, particularly with Southport and other things, has been that the public are just racist and they're mad and they're dangerous and out of control, rather than what we see here, decent people who work hard and want to contribute and then have this terrible thing happen to them. So the British public has had enough. We now need to make sure we have seen a big change, right? We have to be honest that Shababa Mahmood is saying things now that perhaps 18 months ago you might be put in prison for saying. So things have shifted, but we need to get to grips with this in reality.
It's interesting you mentioned the Southport killings, because it was the day that this particular scumbag arrived in the country that scumbag who took the lives of those 3 little girls in Southport did that. That was the same day. Sebastian, the irony is that if the Labour government hadn't pulled the plug on the Rwanda scheme, the chances are quite high that Rhiannon's killer would have been one of those being sent to Rwanda. Do you think that now we do need something like Rwanda or another country just to make sure that, at least try to make sure this doesn't happen anymore?
I don't think that's necessarily true, because the Rwanda scheme was deemed by judges to be illegal. It was suspended for that reason, so it was never in operation and never would have been in operation. I think we have to be very careful.
No one really gave it the chance.
Well, it was heard by a court, and the court said that it was illegal.
But it could have been challenged.
Well, it wasn't.
Well, I know it wasn't because the government changed, but I mean, and then Labour pulled the plug on it straight away. So it could have been challenged and it could have been thrown out.
Yes, but you're then into a deep hypotheticals. So it's not a very clean line between.
The thing is, we're talking about women's lives here. We have to do something to stop it. And at the moment, we just have, I mean, it's like, what, 42,000 last year, the second highest on number. Mostly young men coming across in those boats. We don't know how many more of these men are like this creature.
No, we don't, among the whole population. And this is the problem. And I think we have to be really careful with this story, because the story is the tragedy of a woman being murdered.
Of course it is. No, absolutely.
And what we mustn't do, and I think it would be an insult to Rhiannon's memory to do this, is to politicise it and to use this story to further any political views.
I'm not doing that. I'm
not suggesting
really
you are.
hard not to do that, Sebastian. I read Rhiannon's mum, Donna, her quotes out. She is saying this. She is concerned that another family do not go through what her family have been through.
No, I completely understand that, and I wouldn't want anybody to go through this. But I think it would be a clumsy reaction to this to assume that asylum seekers are somehow a blanket threat, where if you look at the data, and we must be led by the data, we must be led by the evidence, when you look at where attacks happen and who they happen by, it is spread across the country. So if you are serious about tackling violence against women and girls, which I know you are, I know I am, Alan, I'm sure you are as well from what you've said today, then we must be led by those numbers, and we must take a wholesale approach rather than zeroing in on one particular group.
Alan?
I mean, honestly, Sebastian, OK, We have a situation, and you're calling them asylum seekers. Here's someone who's lied that the judge has said he's going to convict him on the basis that he knows he's lied because in Germany he's gone through with a different. Oh, let me just finish my point before you interrupt me.
Why is he not an asylum seeker?
Let me just hold on. I'm making my point. And he's already lied, and the judge says you've lied about your age. And then we call him this asylum seeker, but yet we know that they're people that are coming in on a boat that are illegal migrants. He's come from Germany and he's come somewhere else. Now, you then went on to say that it would be very dangerous to then speculate that this is a general problem from asylum seekers. What we've got is a situation where tens of thousands of men who are around our country, we don't know where they are. We also have a huge issue with the fact that many of them are radicalised and are on the MI6 watches list, at least 45,000 people in Britain. We don't know where they are. We see situations like in Bournemouth and Nuneaton and around the country where there are hotels where there's lots of crimes proportionally far higher from the people that are coming here, but frankly, let me just finish. Even one incident that happens in one area, if you're in a playground or if you're a woman or if you're a man and you get into a situation, is too much. And yet we've got tens of thousands of these people.
I'm going to stop.
We've got tens of thousands of people here.
OK, Alan, Sebastian.
Can I just clarify, Alan? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Are you suggesting that the rate of crimes or the rate of sex attacks or anything else is higher proportionately among asylum seekers than among the population as a whole?
I'm saying absolutely. If you look at the numbers of illegal migrants that are coming into the country, one of the problems with the stats, as you know, one of the problems, as you know, with the, you just asked me a question.
That data isn't captured.
I was about to say one of the problems with the data is that the Home Office has consistently refused to respond to it. But there have been FOIs, and various people like Rupert Lowe and others have put in submissions to get answers on these things.
Can you give us?
But we do know. I'll give you a stat. Here's a really good stat. This is a terrible stat. In Bournemouth, there are 3 hotels, and there are 153 crime incidents that have happened as a consequence of those 3 hotels with those migrants that are in those hotels.
Sorry, I'm going to stop you again because I asked you a specific question.
I'm giving you some stats.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the country as a whole. I'm not interested in Bournemouth specifically.
You're not?
No.
It's a very good example of some stats.
What I want to know is, are people who come here on small boats or come here to claim asylum disproportionately committing crime compared to the rest of the country?
Right, OK, I'll let you ask that question. I'll let you respond to that question. We have to take a quick break, so don't go anywhere after the break. We will be continuing this story. gbnews.com/your say. Have your say, please do, because I really want to hear from you. We'll see you very soon.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dewberry, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health, Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. This is Dewbs & Co. with me, Dawn Neeson tonight, keeping me company until 7 o'clock, Alan Miller and Sebastian Salek. We are talking for the first part of the show about the hideous murder of Rhiannon Sky White, 27-year-old, who was murdered by, I'm not using his name, refused to use his name, but murdered in one of the most horrific ways possible by someone that came over here on one of those small boats. That piece of scum has been sentenced to life with a minimum term of 29 years. And I just want to read a couple of your messages out. This is from Lynn Bob. Lynn says to you, Sebastian. Sebastian, women, we don't want any more of these scum imported. We can deal with the homegrown scum rather than adding more scum to the numbers. Please get a grip. Strong words.
Can I come back on that?
You can.
Because I have a real issue with that argument because it apologises for the men who are born here who commit vicious, horrible acts, and we mustn't let them get away with it.
I'm paraphrasing what Lynn's saying, but she just doesn't want any more here. We have enough to deal with. Why should we import more? And let me see, where are you? Yeah, well, I'll come back to some of those because some of them aren't the kind that I can read out. But Sebastian, just before the break, you asked a question. What was your question?
Yes, so I was asking you, Alan, because it's very important with a topic like this that we deal in facts and data. And if we're going to talk about asylum seekers being a problem in terms of committing crimes or any particular sort of crimes, we have to know that they are disproportionately committing those crimes. And I wondered whether you had any data to back up that argument.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it's a really good one. As you know, the government have been asked, the UK Home Office and others, for stats, and consistently with FOIs and all of that, they've often refused. Here's what we do know, that where there have been migrant hotels and where there are, for instance, in Essex at the Bell Hotel and, for instance, at the 3 hotels in Bournemouth and in Nuneaton and others, there have been a series of sexual assaults and attacks. And I think the British public don't actually want to split hairs on this issue. What the British public is concerned about is that they do not think these people should be here. They believe they've come here illegally on a boat. You're calling them asylum seekers, saying they're all asylum seekers.
Well, the thing is, Alan, it's not illegal to claim asylum, so they are asylum
Well, you're
seekers.
saying it's a claim asylum. We've got this problem, haven't we, with the ECHR. We've got this problem with the... well,
you may not like the law, but that's what it is.
We've got this problem, and you mentioned judges before, with the ECHR, and the fact is that many people, and it may well happen with a new government, that's going to be dispensed with, as we saw President Trump dealt with some things when he became inaugurated. But people who are coming in from France and Germany, the argument is often made, if they're coming over on a boat and they're stating unequivocally, often it's because they want to make money.
Okay.
You can keep calling them...
A lot of words there, Alan, you haven't answered my question.
Well, my point to you is...
The reason you haven't answered my question, Alan, is because, as you know, that data isn't published. So we cannot credibly say that asylum seekers are a bigger problem when it comes to crime or any particular kind of crime compared to the general population.
They're a much bigger problem because they should not be here. The migrants that are illegal should not be here. The migrants...
furthering...
Oh, of course, Sebastian, that's what it is. We're being prejudiced. People are getting killed and raped, and they shouldn't be here, the people that are doing it, and you're saying it's about being prejudiced.
Oh, so
leisure
somebody
class
who is British,
attitudes.
who commits a rape, that's okay?
They should be dealt with, absolutely should be dealt with. Like the gang rape gangs that never got dealt with, right? Like the gang rape gangs that never got dealt with, absolutely, they should be dealt with.
This is so offensive to anybody who's been a victim of a tragedy like this. To politicise
Are you having a laugh?
Ends, to try to further your own toxic agenda.
Oh, listen to yourself.
In the wake
listen to
of
yourself.
tragedy
Toxic
like
agenda.
this.
Are you having a laugh when people are getting killed and raped?
That's exactly my point. You're trying to use those murders and those rapes
It's
to make
abundantly
political
clear.
arguments. I find that really
It's abundantly clear.
This is a political argument, if you want to phrase it as a political argument, that Rhiannon's own mum said that the government needs to take a tougher stance on illegal migration. I do have a fact for you. Afghans are closer to 3 times more likely to be convicted of a sexual offence than someone who was born in the UK. And these are official statistics from the official national statistics.
Well, that's it.
and the Home
Afghans.
Office.
You're not talking about asylum seekers there.
No,
many of those Afghans will either have come here legally. We had a legal route for Afghans only a few years ago.
That was the only data we currently have.
Well, that's exactly the point, Dawn. We just don't have the data to back up the argument that asylum seekers are somehow disproportionately committing crimes.
We do know, though, that there are people near asylum seeker hotels that have been assaulted.
Of course there are.
And people have lost their lives.
Of course there are, which is terrible.
OK, but are you saying, Sebastian, that people like Alan and people like Rhiannon's mum, who are concerned about people coming over here on these boats, and I'm not going to call them asylum seekers because many of them are just illegal, just for crossing the channel, that makes them a criminal. Are you saying that people who are worried about that are somehow racist?
No. I'm not calling anybody racist, Dawn. What I'm saying is that I am very, very concerned about violence against women and girls in this country. Very concerned.
Good.
I think it's an absolute scourge on this nation and I want to see it stamped out. And I want to see it stamped out across the board, which means that I'm not going to focus in on any particular minority group. I want to see this gone full stop. Whether you are black, white, British, foreign, I don't care. You should not be raping women in this country.
This isn't about skin colour. No one's actually mentioned skin colour apart from you.
Sure, OK, I can use other examples. Whether you are gay or straight, whether you are an asylum seeker or you were born here, I don't care what your attributes are. You should not be raping people. That is my point. It's very, very simple.
Alan?
It's interesting that you're in the party, the Labour Party, and their view on the rape gangs and what happened when they voted against having an inquiry. I just think that there's a huge amount of hypocrisy here. I think that your attempt to then call people who disagree with you names and call them toxic and say they're leveraging things on the basis that you don't like the argument. And I think that the British public are fully aware that there are people that should not be here. There's far too many of them. They've come on boats illegally.
You're doing it again.
And we've seen incidents all around the country where there are stabbings, not just with this terrible situation, screwdrivers, with knives and assaults of young girls and rapes, and we're seeing it everywhere, and we're not happy with it. And yes, of course, there are homegrown situations, and they need to be dealt with a strong arm of the law. And we know that the rape gangs were ignored because they were white working-class girls, and the so-called Labour Party that were happy about working-class people chose not to deal with it because they didn't want to be seen as being racist. It's absolutely scurrilous. How dare you start accusing other people of being toxic? It's disgusting.
Are you assuming that I agree with that position on the rape gangs? I think we should be going after them. We should be having a proper...
Well, you're in the
inquiry.
Labour Party.
We are, because that's what this government is doing. So don't assume that my views are always accordant with everybody else in the Labour Party. That's a big assumption to make.
But, Sebastian, one of the reasons the rape gangs were allowed to continue as long as they were was because the people that were raising the alarm, including the victims themselves, were accused of being racist.
You're completely right.
And toxic.
You're completely right, Dawn. And we can't have that. We can't allow fear of racism to cloud what is going on in those communities, and we have to learn from that and move on.
OK, and we have to move on from this one. As I said, please do keep your messages coming in. Lots of you do want to get in touch, and I will read as many out as I possibly can. Lots of you, like me, are very angry, and I don't want to politicise Rhiannon's death. I'm doing this story because of what her mum said, and her mum she deserves to have her words heard, as does her sister, as does Rhiannon's best friend, who was on the phone to her when Rhiannon was attacked walking to the station. Rhiannon was having a chat with her best mate on the phone. That chat turned into screams, and it was Rhiannon's friend that called the police and the authority. Meanwhile, the attacker went back to his hotel, had a few drinks, was dancing and partying, and was clearly very excited, as witnesses said. It's a horror show, and I think we need to talk about this as much as we possibly can. I said this show is for Rhiannon. I want to dedicate this show to her, but we are actually now moving on, coming up. It's linked. Nearly 50,000 prisoners have been released early under Labour's emergency scheme to ease overcrowding in jails. But with 5,000 recorded in December alone, has Labour really got a grip on that prison crisis? We'll see you soon.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Plenty of heavy rain over the central Mediterranean through the next few days. More rain heading into Portugal as well, and generally fine and sunny conditions across the Canaries. A drier day in Portugal on Saturday, but we are going to see more rain coming in here Sunday. There's the heavy rain from an area of low pressure across the central Med, looking very wet for Sardinia and Sicily, where it'll also be quite gusty. Some sunny spells for the Greek islands on Saturday, but we'll see some showers heading in here on Sunday.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Evening. Yes, time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. It's a messy weekend. It won't rain all weekend, so there'll be a fair few showers around on Saturday. Sunday, overall, the drier day, but there's more wet weather to talk about for next week. Plenty of wet weather around tonight as well. This low pressure system's been moving its way up, providing heavy rain for parts of Wales and southwest England, where there is a Met Office yellow warning in place because it's been so wet. Extra rain falling may well cause some further flooding issues. The rain will spread into northern England, Northern Ireland, parts of southern Scotland by the end of the night. We continue with this brisk wind feeding the wet weather into eastern Scotland with snow on the hills. Temperatures holding up 4 to 7 degrees to start the weekend. Like recent days, western Scotland probably the place to be for dry and bright weather on Saturday, but also East Anglia in the southeast, probably largely fine for much of the day. Still quite wet across Wales and some showers to southwest England to begin with, and looking quite grey with showery rain over much of northern England, Northern Ireland and southern Scotland. There's that nagging wind which continues to feed cloud and rain into Aberdeenshire and the Northern Isles. But as I said, with some shelter, western Scotland doing okay for dry and bright weather. We should see some sunny spells developing for parts of Lincolnshire, generally staying dry and bright across eastern England. Further outbreaks of rain to come for Wales, the Midlands and a few showers in the southwest, perhaps turning a bit drier and brighter through the day in Northern Ireland. Temperature-wise, we're close to average, may get to double figures in the south, but feeling quite cool in that wind which continues to blow into Sunday across the northeast. I said overall a drier day on Sunday, but there will still be a few showers around. Quite a murky start, could be some mist and fog. A zone of rain works its way across Northern Ireland and into western Scotland. A few showers elsewhere, but some brighter spells. Temperatures, again, close to the average, 7 to 10 Celsius, similar to what they've been for much of this week.
Thank you for making us Britain's #1 news channel. Together, we have built something truly extraordinary.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. On the M90 northbound at Broxton Roundabout, there are restrictions after a broken down vehicle. On the M4 westbound, queues are building from junction 23A at Mega to junction 26 at Malpas. In Cheshire, the M6 northbound between junction 18 and junction 19 has one lane closed for a broken down vehicle. In Cambridgeshire, the M11 northbound between junction 11 and junction 14 is slow with around 30 minutes of delays. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast is disrupted between London Euston and Watford Junction, and Great Western Railway warns poor weather will affect services. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Hello, welcome back. This is Dewbs & Co. with me, Dawn Neeson, tonight. Now, keeping me company until 7 o'clock is co-founder of the Together Association, Alan Miller, and Labour councillor and commentator, Sebastian Salik. And it's about Sebastian that a lot of you aren't happy. I'm just going to read this one out because I don't think you could take the rest.
Go on, do your worst.
Message from David, lots of them are similar. My blood is boiling. That rat, Sebastian, nearly made me smash my TV.
Oh, no, don't do that, David.
At least they care.
Terrible idea.
Don't smash it in. Carry on watching, please do. OK, now we're moving on from Rhiannon's story, but it's similar, if you like, because nearly 50,000 prisoners have been released early under Labour's emergency scheme to ease overcrowding in jails. New Ministry of Justice figures show that 48,931 inmates, to be precise, were freed between September 24 and September 25. But those efforts are already being undermined. Record numbers of offenders are now being recalled to prison across England and Wales. Prison sources say that in December alone, as many as 5,000 men, men again, were recalled. OK, let's come to you first on this one, Alan. Can Labour get a grip of the prison crisis?
Well, to be fair to them and everyone, I mean, this prison crisis has been in the making for quite some time. We've got Victorian prisons that haven't been properly invested in for a long time. We've got a huge issue with the morale of the prison guards. We've got a situation where the very notion of crime and punishment and rehabilitation has not been focused on properly, and therefore recidivism and continuation of crime when people come out goes on. We've also got a terrible situation in prisons of radical jihadism, which is not being addressed at all. And actually, if you go in and you're in postcode gangs or stuff like that and you've been involved in violence, the way you can stop doing that is if you subscribe to becoming involved, and they're groomed and they're brought into this situation, so then you are part of the brotherhood and you don't have to fight. And then that has a radicalising impact on everyone in prisons and then in society. The irony, though, of all of this, letting people out early, but at the same time clamping down on free speech, on protests, ever-increasing laws, but not upholding authority, having a situation where, as well as the fact that we know 12,000 people were arrested for non-crime hate incidents, pushing the idea that there are protected characteristics, floating the idea of having an Islamophobic law, that very particular types of crimes are focused on. If you have weaponising the police and the judiciary to go after some people and put them in prison for social media posts, where many others for violent crimes and burglaries, and certainly for shoplifting, which is not, it's basically been allowed up to a certain amount. Those things are a real problem. So it is an issue that there are we don't have enough capacity, and we have to address that in terms of a question about infrastructure, also about what we do inside the prisons, and the idea of having a society that's worth being in and being part of a contributing member of society. That also goes to children and others, and the messages that we have around that. That's really important. But I'm also very concerned, as we've seen also today with our Prime Minister, who's desperate to do a deal with the Chinese that probably has more in common with the Chinese in terms of their views of free speech, and criminalising some people, also with police that should be policing without fear or favour, but seem to be targeting some people. So this question of crime and punishment and law and order really is essential. This is another question of the infrastructure we need to get to grips with a full Doge and a full new government.
Interesting, actually. Sebastian, do you agree with that? I mean, this isn't the fault of the Labour government, it's the fault of many, many previous governments, to be fair. Yeah, that's true. And look, there is progress there. Before this intervention, the prison population was going to breach 100,000 by 2030. Now it's forecast to hit 92,600. So there has been a reduction as a result. I think you have to look at this as a short-term measure and then a long-term measure. The short-term measure is what we're seeing today, this kind of early release that you use to open the pressure valve, make sure that prisons don't literally burst. The long-term measure is what's known as an earned progression model, and the idea is that... This is the Texas model that's coming in,
exactly. So if you behave well, you come out earlier. If you behave badly, you stay for longer. And I think that will start to sort the people who should be in prison and should be serving longer, and those who have been rehabilitated or who have come to the end of their time or who have in some way improved their way of living their lives, that they should be able to be released. And a lot of this came from David Gauke as well, the Justice Secretary under Theresa May, I think it was. Yes, it was. Who presided over our prisons and did a very thorough review, and I think came out with a lot of very sensible recommendations. Of course, one way, Sebastian, of decreasing the criminal population held in prison at the moment is to send foreign nationals in our prisons back to their countries of origin. There are 10,700 foreign nationals in British prisons at the moment. We have the right to send them back. We never seem to do so, though. Well, Labour has decreased the threshold for deporting a foreign offender. So before it had to be a sentence of at least a year, that's gone down to 0 before it goes in front of the Home Secretary. So that is going to be made easier. What I would say, though, is we have to be careful that we don't introduce a lower threshold as a result of the crime you commit. And what I mean by that is if you know that if you commit a crime in Britain, you're just going to be sent home again, that is arguably less of a punishment than being put in prison. And we do that at our peril. I think we need to make sure that people are given the opportunity where appropriate to be rehabilitated, but also must be punished where they've done wrong. I mean, obviously, the piece of filth that took Rhiannon's life is now going to be in prison at taxpayers' expense for 29 years. He came from Sudan. Send him back to Sudan.
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, I mean, the thing is, yeah, He shouldn't have been. I think there needs to be punishment, full punishment for the behaviour, for the crime. And it is a cost to us. But if we can agree and we can do deals and make sure that those things equally get punished, not that he just totters off and goes to Sudan and then there's no punishment, then that's an issue. We also have to have a country where our laws are upheld and maintained. And, you know, that's part of the problem, what's going on. It is true that they've managed to get the figures down, but that's because they've just released all these people early. So the public's concern with law and order and making sure that that's upheld, it's a really terrible state. I mean, just our high streets, right? People just, you go into retail, you just see people just putting things in there and it's not getting dealt with. And I just think that having more people coming out early to make sure the numbers are dealt with is not really resolving our problem. And we've got to get to grips with this. We should have a portfolio for the prisons, like we need to in each of our institutions, that actually gets to grip with this from root and branch.
OK, right. Just before we go to a break, we've got some sad news for you, some breaking news. Catherine O'Hara, the actress best known for films like Home Alone, Beetlejuice and Best in Show, has sadly died at the age of 71. Her manager confirmed the news to Variety, and the cause of death is not yet known. That's a picture of her there, obviously, from Home Alone, which many of you will remember her for. OK, coming up after the break, is AI becoming too left-wing? This is one for Sebastian, isn't it? We'll discuss that in the Dewberry Tavern. That's coming up next. Don't go too far. We'll see you soon.
I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co. with you.
Hello, everyone. Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get us on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What we're going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. This is Dewbs & Co with me, Dawn Newsom. As you can see, the tavern is indeed open because it's been a tough news day, but it is a Friday, and I think sometimes dry January can just go and do one, can't it, to be honest with you? OK, keeping me company until 7 o'clock, which isn't long. It's Alan Miller and Sebastian Salek, who are both still with me, which is remarkable considering the way the first part of the show started out. Now, there are growing fears that AI chatbots, I've got no idea what they actually are, have a left-wing political bias. That's according to new research. AI chatbots are more likely to source answers to questions about the news from left-wing sources such as The Guardian and indeed the BBC. OK, now, both of my panel know what they're talking about on this one, which is a huge relief because I'm completely and utterly clueless. Sebastian, you're the age group that will use ChatGPT and chatbots and things like that. So are you surprised that they draw most of the answers, the questions you ask them, from more left-wing sources?
I'm surprised by that assertion. And so I should say that I use ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, all of these chatbots pretty much every day for the day job. Yeah, they're brilliant.
Like your friends.
When you learn to use them properly, they become really effective, and I think they are the future.
Go on, give me an example of a question you would ask.
So you might, you might give it a piece of writing and say, oh, I need a statistic to fit here. What could you give me? And show your source. And then it gives you some statistics and you can go through and have a look through them. So it speeds up the work, rather than trawling through Google to try and find...
does the work for you.
Yes, if you know what to ask.
Yes, that's what I thought, yes. OK, and it's giving you answers from The Guardian and the BBC?
Well, yeah, I mean, it certainly hasn't been my experience. And the BBC actually is an interesting one because they are very anti being scraped for this kind of thing. There's a whole debate around should you be able to take intellectual property from somebody who's created it and put it into a chatbot. So the BBC actually aren't showing up very much because they are blocking it at the moment. And jury's out over whether that's a good reason or not, because ultimately, that information is going to be cited elsewhere. Sky might cite something the BBC said. The chatbot will find it anyway, and they might misinterpret it, and then they're giving wrong information. That's the big risk with all of this. But what really caught my eye from the report from the IPPR, which this story is based on, is that ChatGPT cites GBNews more than the BBC, which really stood out to me.
Oh, yeah, I've just seen that bit. Yeah, wow.
Hasn't been my personal experience, but interesting to see that that's what they found when they did the research.
OK, and Alan, I mean, you are slightly older than Sebastian, I think it's fair to say, but you do this as well, don't you?
I do a bit of it. I'm not an expert at all on AI. I find it fascinating, and we should remember that, I mean, the idea of machine learning and it can be self-selecting and to the questions you ask and it responds to that, but it's zeros and ones in the end. It's about the research of the information that's already out there. And as we know, over the last few years, we saw this from the Twitter files and the lockdown files, that certain social media platforms and some of the outlets that dominate much of the legacy media have been of a certain view. It's interesting, the point about the BBC, because we know recently there's been quite a lot of issues with their factual representations, and we've seen that just in the last few weeks, and the apologies have had to be made. But I think one of the things is that you have to keep asking questions and you have to keep giving it instructions to make it more and more precise, because a very generic thing, the first thing it will bring is just a generic thing, and that may well be predisposed to being something like The Guardian or the BBC. But if you keep going back and keep asking questions and say, no, are you sure this is right, and get specific on the question. For instance, you could ask the question, was Charlie Kirk something or another? And depending on what you ask them and forcing it's not a them, that's the thing. It's like, but if you go back and keep asking the same question and say, do better, is this really the case? Where are you getting your sources from? Then, as you refine it a bit more, it can become more precise. The thing about AI is that it's really good if you give it a project. So if you say, for instance, I'm doing this and can you put it into a file or a document and you can present a layout or give us a bit of an overview, it's very good at processing really fast, doing human jobs that took a long time to do that. But it's not going to replace right now, but this is a big heated debate in the tech world, our own discerning of things on moral questions and where we stand with it. And that's the political point about what view you take on things. So generally it's aggregating and it's seeing where the numbers are highest or where the most things are, and often I think that some of the programmers, as we've seen in Silicon Valley and elsewhere, have a certain predisposition.
The problem I've got with it, Sebastian, we are running out of time quickly, is that we've programmed AI originally now, but we've got AI programming other AI, so we've got no idea what they're doing out there. They're robots programming robots, and they're all cleverer than us.
Yeah, definitely. And this is the point that Alan makes that I completely agree with. We have to make sure that we don't lose control. You have to be in charge of your AI. You have to understand what you're asking. You have to understand what you're getting back, because it really is garbage in, garbage out. And if you use it badly, you're going to get a terrible output.
I'm just not going to use it at all, but I am real, by the way. Obviously real. But yeah, I mean, ChatGPT is the one to use because that references GB News more than the BBC. We love that one. Thank you both you to Alan Miller, Sebastian Salick. Thank you so much for watching. Really loved your company. Don't go too far because Lee Anderson is up next. And the one thing I would say is stay safe out there this weekend. Thanks for watching.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Evening. Yes, time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. It's a messy weekend. It won't rain all weekend, so there'll be a fair few showers around on Saturday. Sunday, overall, the drier day, but there's more wet weather to talk about for next week. Plenty of wet weather around tonight as well. This low pressure system's been moving its way up, providing heavy rain for parts of Wales and southwest England, where there is a Met Office yellow warning in place because it's been so wet. Extra rain falling may well cause some further flooding issues. The rain will spread into northern England, Northern Ireland, parts of southern Scotland by the end of the night. We continue with this brisk wind feeding the wet weather into eastern Scotland with snow on the hills. Temperatures holding up 4 to 7 degrees to start the weekend. Like recent days, western Scotland probably the place to be for dry and bright weather on Saturday, but also East Anglia in the southeast, probably largely fine for much of the day. Still quite wet across Wales and some showers to southwest England to begin with, and looking quite grey with showery rain over much of northern England, Northern Ireland and southern Scotland. There's that